Welcome back to the Get Set podcast, an old girls entertainment production where neoteric meets nostalgia. We are a podcast demystifying the idea of an overnight success while highlighting the array of diverse jobs within the industry with a focus on women in TV and film space. Today is your co-host here, myself, Jessica Payne, and
Monique Schwaneman. And today on the pod, we have someone with experience we have never delved into before in all of our past 4 seasons. I'm talking about the costume department. DEBRA TREVINO has extensive experience in costume design and costume coordination and is most recently known for her work on Dr. Odyssey, Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, the Ghosted TV series, and Maze Runner, The Death Cure, among many, many others.
But not only does she bring this new expertise to the pod today, she also has a background as a producer and is a fellow woman founder of her own production company, Clever Girl Productions. Welcome to the pod, DEBRA TREVINO.
Woo!
Yay. Hello. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yay, we're so happy you're here. First, we're gonna ask you what we ask all of our guests starting off is, we heard a little bit about you in your bio, but in your own words, who are you and where do you call home?
Hi, my name's Deborah. I'm from Texas, y'all. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I went to school in Austin, Texas. The University of Texas is where I graduated, Hook 'em Horns. And I went to UT specifically for film. So that was my undergrad, was studying film. And, my whole idea was like, okay, I love the movies. I want to be involved in anything involved in it. I want to produce. That's what I want to do. While I was there, it was great. I met a lot of amazing people. And I did focus on producing and screenwriting. And then as I was leaving, after I graduated, I did work on a few films in Austin, just some local low budget films. And that's where I really got my feet wet, just as a PA. And then production coordinator and even a second AD, which is a whole other world. But yeah, that's where I started.
Yeah, we have an AD on this season. So, and she delves into because Jessica will throw these terms at me like, oh, they're the second. And I was like, I thought there was just a first and a second. Like, what is the second? So there's a lot.
Oh, there's a second and a second.
Oh my, there's not a third, which would make sense if there's a first AD, second AD, not a third. There's just the second. So that was kind of funny.
I'm like, I wonder why that's the terminology. It's so interesting.
Yeah,
sure, some sort of union thing.
But after I, stayed in Austin a year after I graduated, worked on some films there, and then I moved out. I made the big move to LA. And I was
what was that decision like?
I mean, it was kind of, I thought about it as I was in school. So it's like, okay, there's definitely 2 tracks. You could be going, if you really wanted to work in the industry, Austin and Texas has a great film scene now, but back then it was bits and pieces, stuff was coming in and out. And so it was really like, if you want to work in film, you go to New York or LA. And I can't handle cold weather. And I was just like, you know what? I feel my vibe is more Los Angeles. With a few friends too, we moved out. That was 20 years ago. I was thinking about, I was like, when did I get here? Oh yeah,
you're a local now.
2006. I can't believe it. So I've been here in LA for a long time now, and I've had a lot of different jobs in the industry, and most recently it was in the costume department.
Wow. Do you remember once you moved out to LA what that first job was?
It was some PA, so PA production assistant job on set. So like set PA jobs is what I would get. So when I was back in Austin, like I said, my last job was like second AD. So some of those contacts from Austin helped me get like my first PA job out in LA. And I think it was some random movie, I can't actually remember, and then some commercials. And eventually I just kept kind of set PAing until eventually I did get assistant production coordinator job on TV series on Bravo, when Bravo, I guess, was actually doing like scripted. Anyway, but that was shooting in Hawaii. And so they flew me out to Hawaii, and I was there for like living in the North Shore of Hawaii for like 2-3 months It was amazing.
That is incredible. That's the dream.
Yes. So that was really great. Oh, but I will say after, that happened and that was amazing. I think that was before, but right after, one of my first jobs was I was interning. So I interned at Laura Ziskin Productions. And at the time she was doing Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire on the Sony lot. So that was my first sort of internship on the Sony lot with a production company. She was also producing the Oscars at the same time.
That's massive. That's a massive internship.
Yes. So like I went in specifically to be the Oscar PA. So one of the Oscar PAs. So I would say that my first year in Hollywood, I went to the Oscars. I went to, because I was assisting one of the associate producers, and we ended up, working out of Sony, out of the production company at Laura Ziskin Productions, and then we moved into the Dolby. It was a Dolby theater back then. We moved into the Dolby theater, and we set up shop backstage, and we were there, and the other interns and PAs were there. Eventually, it did turn into a actually paid PA position, because when I first started, it was like you get to volunteer for free to work at Laura Ziskin, and at the same time, I was actually being paid as a Paramount Studios page. So I was a Paramount Studio page as well, which is basically you would give the tours of Paramount Studios, and you would help out in any sort of department as well that needed a last minute person. So we were like the temp staff on the lot, and we got to know all the history of Paramount. So I was at Paramount Studios, and then I was also going to intern at Laura Ziskin, and then eventually they said we need you full time for the Oscar PA at Laura Ziskin. And so I went and I did that, and it was amazing because on the day of the Oscars, we had to help. We were working the pre-show, so we were helping with the pre-show, and then once the pre-show was done, it was like, y'all go wherever you want to go. So we were on the red carpet, we were backstage, and we knew that theater inside and out, so we knew the secret backdoor stuff. So met a lot of celebrities, even for the rehearsals. Got to see Celine Dion and not Destiny's Child, but Dreamgirls was nominated that year. So Beyonce, Jennifer Hudson, they did their rehearsals, and I was sitting in the theater while they were doing the rehearsal, and I'm like, I have a almost private performance with Beyonce and Celine Dion there, and it was just amazing. So that was my intro to Hollywood, and then it just continued.
Whatever.
Year one, and then it was the Hawaii job, I think, came after that, which again, that was a referral or some recommendation from some other job before that, saying oh, okay. And that I was assistant production coordinator on that. And then I kept bouncing to because, after you're done with a job, the job's done. So the Oscars are done. The end. It's a wrap. Go find your next job, which is scary for a lot of people. And for me at the time, but it was just there was so many opportunities, and it was a busy town. It was very busy back then. I just kept going as a PA or assistant production coordinator to different roles. And there was one role too that I was actually a first AD. Speaking of first or second, I went and became a first AD for a low budget comedy film with Patrick Warburton and Andy Dick. And it was it was a full feature. I was the AD on that. So, I mean, and then that came into, I worked on Tropic Thunder as a property coordinator, so the prop department. And then kept going. I mean, there's so many crazy jobs.
So how did you transition into costumes?
That happened maybe 5 or 6 years ago. My friend, she was an assistant to a costume designer, and she was working on commercials. So this designer was doing commercials, and one day she kind of messed up and she needed help, my friend. And she said, can you just come and help me? I just need help. And so I came. I wasn't paid for this commercial, but I was like, I'll help. What's going on? And I did all these returns, which is a whole thing in costumes. And the designer was like, whoa, that was really fast. Wait, you know what you're doing. Wait, I want you on my next project. And it just kind of like kept going. She basically said, can you help me on the next thing? She also had she was dating a musician who needed to have a music video produced. And I said, oh, I produce too. And she's like, great, can you produce this
Had
music
you
video?
produced anything at that point on your own?
So, I know, it's like kind of jumping. I did some music video producing. Cool. Again, these were friends from school. I would say back in Texas, I did a few music videos where I AD'd / produced, like kind of like helped, low budget. And then I did that, back in Texas. And it was kind of like, like school sort of thing.
No, but
and then,
we've heard stories like this of people saying like, oh, I have these skills. I just tell people that I do them to get a job. But I mean, you did have experience in it. Even though it was like back in school, it is, we talk about this a lot on the pod. It is really important when those opportunities come up to speak up and say, oh, you need this? I can fill this gap, because then people see you in that light. And it doesn't matter if that's the role that you're working in on set. If you have those skills, if you have that confidence, it takes you so far to be able to like speak up in that moment.
And I will say that one of the things I learned in college was how to break down a script for being like an AD, and like putting the shot list together, like logistically putting the schedule together based off location, actor schedules, like all of that. And I had the like program on how to like the EP movie magic programming that I could, just schedule basically a shoot correctly. And doing that at school would be like, oh, there's like a graduate thesis project that needs, I can AD that, I can do that. So I've AD'd. So I felt very confident about ADing. And so that's why I was like, oh, and it's very similar to producing in my opinion, because it's all about organizing and figuring out how to put out fires when problems arise. So for that, it was like, oh, that seems second nature. So I did that in college. And then when this designer was like, oh, you also do this? Because I'm like, I'm not a costumer. I just came to help my friend. I don't know anything about costumes. And she's like, okay, well, I want you on my next commercial, but also I want you to help me produce my boyfriend's music video. And I was like, okay. So I did that, and it was great. And then I started with her going to different commercials as just a costume PA, which just like any PA, production assistant, that's like, you're basically the runner, you're the one who does whatever is needed. So I was just like helping them in all aspects. And at that point too, it was like doing all these returns, which when you do a commercial or a film or a TV show, the designer and the shoppers, they have to buy a ton of clothes to get ready for the fittings, because you have to have a fitting before you shoot, because you have to, even though the actors give you their sizes, it might not be correct, or just the fit of the thing doesn't match. So you have to, the designer, that's where the designer comes in, gets their eye of like, these are the clothes we want for this character, but we also need to make sure that they match and they fit correctly in the fitting. So they'll have to buy a lot of looks. And then after the fitting, based off what they've chosen, the rest of the stuff can go back. So then it's like, okay, there's a big process of like, we got to return this. So a lot of it is shopped, especially for commercials, it's shopped in store versus like rented at a costume house. So there's always a lot of returns that need to be done. And so I was really fast with the returns. In LA, there's some stores that will charge a production like percentage to do a return. And they call it like, oh, this is a studio buy. So like if you went to H&M and bought like $1,000 worth of stuff, they will mark the receipt and they'll be like, you'll have to pay 30% of this no matter what. So like there's a lot of that. But sometimes if you're like, oh, we just bought like $20, they'll be like, you still owe 30%. You're like, oh, why? We're just trying to do a return. Where does it say? Sometimes they didn't mark it. I'm like, where does it say? So it was like a whole thing, but I was really fast in doing that and just like ready to do whatever the department needed. So
in LA, when you make a massive purchase, do the retailers assume that you're with production and they ask that, or do you say that? Okay,
they assume, and like usually they have a process. So like if you know you're gonna go to like Nordstrom, you have to like fill out all this paperwork, and you have to have it like they have a whole different department. It's called studio services. to shop.
Ooh.
So like you're like, so that they don't bug you and it's an easier process, even though you do have to have you either have to have a keep, which is like you have to keep X amount of money, right? Or there's a restocking fee, or there's both, right? And so that can really eat into budgets and stuff. So you have to be careful about, are we doing a studio pool, or do we just need to buy like a couple pair of shoes at Nordstrom? Or are they going to be like, this is for a TV show, you have to, so there's different ways to do that. But ideally, you do a studio system. If they do have a studio services department, you want to go through them. But if you're going to like, who's like kind of the worst, like Nordstrom Rack, they'll be so on you, like, and of course if you go there all the time, they'll start recognizing you and you're like, no, this is me personally, I'm shopping for me, calm down. Or you're just like, I'm just picking up one thing. So it's like there's a whole other like world of problems when you're like, what, why can't we just
go
return?
To all the different stores?
Yeah, and sometimes
go in the valley, go on the west side,
and they'll get mad at you if you buy a lot of stuff and return a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah,
so that's why they have the studio services. So that makes sense. But then sometimes they're like, okay, you can only do a return on like Monday morning at like 7 a.m. and it has to, and you only get a week. Like if you do a pool, sometimes like you pull a lot of stuff, a lot of clothes, they won't charge you, but you have a week to return it. And if you don't return in a week, they'll charge you everything. So you have to be quick with your fitting. So that's also when you're in TV, because I transitioned to TV eventually, there's a lot of moving parts, and sometimes you don't get cast until like the day before, or they did cast someone and then you're like, great, we have the fitting schedule for next week, and they're like, oh, we pushed the schedule, and we're like, but we just have all these clothes we got for that particular character, and we can't hold on to it for another week, otherwise they'll charge us the full amount. So it's like this whole back and forth. So I'm kind of like skipping ahead into like kind of the nitty gritty, but basically I went from doing commercials with this one great designer to then word of mouth, just being like, oh, I have a great PA, I have a great PA. You meet other people on commercials in the same department or different departments. And then that's how it's all word of mouth of like, who needs a job, or I heard that someone needs a PA, or I'll recommend you to my friend. And then eventually I got to a movie with a costume supervisor who knew my designer friend. And so just so you know, there's like, costume designer is like what you think of the costume department. Like they're the ones that have the eye. They're the ones figuring out the looks. They'll actually design if it's necessary to sketch, and you're going to make and build things. And then you have the costume supervisor, which I like to say the costume designer is the eye, right? They're like, they have the eye. The supervisor has the brain. So the supervisor is the one who will break down the script, will, create a budget. They'll create the schedule for the fittings. They will make sure they're on top of all the changes, the script changes. So they have to deal with all the personnel issues. So like they have to make sure they get the right crew and that they're advocating for the whole department. So like a production might say, okay, you get like one shopper and like two set costumers. And they're like, no, there's so many. This is so much more advanced. There's like 10 people in the cast. There's like 1 million extras every week. Like we need at least, 4 costumers. We need shoppers. We need all this. So that's what the supervisor will decide. Like this is actually what's needed based off what the script is saying. And if y'all want to change that, then y'all need to cut the scenes, or y'all need to like limit how many background you want to have on this day. You want 200 background, we're going to need, like 5 costumers just dressing background, if not more, so it's that whole thing where the supervisor will figure out all the logistics and the designer will figure out the look, the style, the fit, how all of these characters are going to look, basically.
So just so I have it correctly, in terms of like top to bottom, it's the costume designer, the supervisor, set costumers, shoppers, and PAs? Is that kind of how it goes?
Yes. So there's some that are just like laterally the same. So like technically...
Oh, like the designer and the supervisor?
Yes.
Are they lateral? Okay.
Yeah, technically. So like for union purposes, right? The supervisors and the set costumers, shoppers, they're all under 705 costume union. And then you have the designers. So like you have the costume designer and the assistant costume designers, those are in a totally different guild. They're in the costume designers guild. But technically, in all the contracts, the costume supervisor is technically the head of the department, which, I mean, it's kind of more of a technical thing, but they are technically the head. But when you think of like a costume department, you think the designer's the head. But as far as like equal, like I would say they were equal in like power as far as like the head. Like if you have a problem with, oh, the you know, we don't like the style of this shirt, or the actor's uncomfortable with this, that's more of like a designer thing. But if you're like, hey, we have to deal with how many crew members you're gonna need for the next episode, and you're over budget and you need this, that's a supervisor. But in conjunction, they are both working together. So they're
Right.
like, hey, you can't be shopping for $5,000 dresses, you know, for everybody this week. It's like, oh, okay, great. So like they have to work together. They work together on like the budget, or like, can you do this? Like if you only had 2 shoppers, is that okay? Or they're like, the designer might like, this is crazy. They want 300 people tomorrow. We need like 5 extra shoppers to like help out. So like they will totally work together.
Yeah, it almost sounds like the supervisor, the costume supervisor, is almost like the producer of that little department.
Correct.
In that, and working with the director or the creative, right, with the designer, trying to manage both the vision and what is accessible to the budget and like the rest of the
totally.
team.
So that's exactly right. I would say that is so true. So like being the supervisor isn't necessarily the most glamorous, and then but it is like you are, you know, steering that ship, and you need to know like all these things. So most supervisors have worked on set, you know, have maybe even designed, you know, but wanted to go into this world instead. So yeah, those two are like the top. They're the heads, I would say. They share responsibility. And then the designer, on the design side, you do have assistant costume designers, which are also, they're not assistants, they are additional designers is how I look at them. So they a lot of people are like, oh, you're just assisting the designer, and I'm like, no, they are actually, they can make those style choices, they can go shop, they can the designer will work with that assistant designer to help them come up with the looks, or to refine the looks and talk about the characters. And when the designer's not on set, that's where the ACD, assistant costume designer, will step in. So they will be their proxy, and they can, you know, establish looks. They can, you know, figure out what needs to happen next as far as the style goes, and even the changes. So like they will also help with figuring out the continuity of it as well. Then you get into the costumer side of things, which is the supervisor. You have shoppers, which that is its own skill. Not every costumer can be a shopper, because not everyone has that skill. I wouldn't say I'm a shopper. Like, yes, if you're very specific with me, like, okay, everyone needs to be wearing red shirts and, you know, plaid pants or whatever it is. It's like, okay, got it. But if they're like, this is the character based off the character notes, go. You know, you're like, oh, okay. And usually those shoppers will work with the assistant designers and the costume designer. They have to be able to translate the designer's vision into the real world. So if they're like, hey, you know, I did the show Dr. Odyssey, it was all this about this upscale cruise ship. It's all like super fancy. So it's like, okay, this week it's going to be, you know, singles week. So, you know, it's all these like single people are coming on board, and they're all like young and single. So y'all need to help shop for that. So then, okay. But the designer will go into detail like, okay, it's more upscale. So
yeah, because young and single is so generic.
It's broad. It's a broad statement. And you're young and single, it might be different than someone else's. And especially
guaranteed, mine's different than Dr. Odyssey. Guaranteed.
Right. So then it's like, and you have to know the designer's style too. So like, even if you're like, yeah, this is upscale, you know, this was expensive, or this is whatever, but it's like, the style that we've created we're going with these certain colors. We're going with this. Also, our main actors are already in these colors or this look, you know, this structured look. We can't have them compete or all this other stuff. So like there is a whole design creative aspect with the shoppers working with the designer and the assistant costume designer. So again, that's just the creative, I would say, side of it all. Then you have the actual set costumers, And those are the, I would say, because I'm a costumer, I can be a set. Once you're a costumer, you can be on set, or you can help in the office, or, you can maneuver. But for set costumers, they are the ones that execute the vision. So it's like the designer will come in and they'll have boards. They'll be like, this is what we had from the fitting. This is how we want the look to be. Whenever a new look has to be established, that means the first time we're seeing this look on this character. Sometimes it's out of order. So like, let's say this is the scene where the wine had spilled on her shirt, but this is a scene where it's already spilled on her shirt. So it's like, okay, we have a big wine stain shirt prepped already for her to wear. We might
probably
have to have
multiple.
We'll have to have molds because, we're shooting out of order. So we have to like make sure this is what it looks like after, but then we're going to shoot the clean version maybe a week from now. So we have to be prepared. So the set costumers, usually they pair off, let's say you have like 5 lead characters, right? You might have like 2 set costumers that are going to deal with them, but they might say, okay, I'm going to take, number 1 and number 3 are going to be my people that I take care of. And then the other set costumer will be like, great, I'll have actor number 2 and, 4 and 5, because sometimes there's very complicated, setups, or like while they're going to change, this other person is ready to go on set. So you have to divide and conquer your characters, your actors, and the actors want to feel comfortable with kind of seeing the same person every day, knowing that like, hey, yesterday that shoe kind of hurt my foot, and the set costumer's like, that's fine, we put some moleskin in there, it's going to be better, let me know if you have any questions, we will help you get into an outfit if you need physical help getting into an outfit, but we're here ready with the jacket that you have to put on during the scene. Like last looks, that's a whole thing. Right before the take starts, they'll call for last looks. That means hair, makeup, wardrobe comes in to do their final looks. So if, obviously for hair and makeup, they're going to do their face and hair. For us, it's the clothes. So we have to make sure, they're wearing their sleeves rolled up 3 times. They're cuffed, right? And where do they land? They land right at the elbow, right? Both of them, right? Maybe during the scene, they come down, and that's okay. It naturally came down. We go take 2. The set costumers to roll them back up to where they wanted to start.
3 times, exactly. Yes,
3 times. Exactly, because that's based off what the designer wanted. So if the designer's like, here's the final look. They're wearing this button-up shirt, and it's rolled 3 times at the cuff. It comes out here. It's tucked in halfway, and you're like, okay. And then, these, with these pants and these shoes, and maybe in the scene, they put on a jacket at the end as they're leaving. So it's like, okay, so all of that, the set costumers know these are how it's supposed to look. And so they'll constantly make sure that that's how it looks at the top of the scene, or whatever scene we're in the progression of that look. And so it's a lot of keeping track of things and continuity. So you have also a key costumer, and usually that key costumer is kind of the head of organizing all of that, making sure the looks that need to be, and with the supervisor and everyone tracking the changes, it's like, here's day 2 look or change 2 for this character, and we have to make sure it's on the trailer ready to go for the set costumers for in the morning when they're there. Here's change 2 for our actress, and we have all the pieces so that when we're ready to set her change, which means we're putting the actual costume change into their trailer, we make sure all the pieces are there, and we either hang it and we put the shoes on the bottom, we have the sock, we have the jewelry tray ready to go, so it's super easy for them to put on. And once they put it on, the designer, if it's the first time, will look it over and say like, okay, actually we're going to use this necklace instead, we're changing this. And then the set costumers are like, okay, this is the established look, got it. And then they'll go.
Another thing that I know you all have to do is when an actor goes to get wired, meaning they get their microphone put on for the scene, you also are in attendance. Especially, we've had our friend Kelsey Nyon, who is a sound utility. And we worked on a show where the costumes were itty bitty. And so trying to find where we can put a wire on was always like a challenge. And that wiring
a pole
process
dancer
would take,
is crazy. Like, where do you put it? Yeah.
Well, again, that also sometimes it's like, dude, they're like naked in this scene. There's nowhere to put it. So then you're gonna have to boom it. You can't put a lav on them. You can't wire them. So, but yes, the set costumers will always work in tandem with the sound department. And if the actor is okay with the sound person attaching the mic, then they can do it. Sometimes they're not, and they want us to do it, or they want to do it themselves. They'll be like, okay, because then we'll be like, this goes down your shirt, and it's going to go out the back, and it's go down the side, so we have to make sure. So whatever they're comfortable with, which is also why the set costumers are consistent with who the actor they're working with, so that they can trust them and they know them, because when you're dealing with clothes on people's bodies, you know, it's a sensitive issue. And so that's why anytime, like sometimes though, you'll have like a sound person just starts grabbing them and starts putting, and you have to, whoa, you have to ask. There's a whole etiquette too. Like when we are dealing with our actors, you know, if we're going in their trailer to set a look and we don't know if they're in it, we always knock, we wait, and we introduce ourselves or announce ourselves before we walk in. Like, you know, costumes, we're walking in. We always say that even if we know they're not in there, because you also don't know. There might be someone else in there. So you always want to, you know, have the protocol of like, we are respecting your space, and especially even on set. So like, even if they're like, okay, get away from me. I don't need everyone cluttered around me right after a take either. You have to like, you know, make sure that they have their right space, and that, if they have to be mic'd, that the sound person, and usually the sound persons, they know what they're doing. They're asking, they're respectful. But sometimes that's not always the case. And sometimes there's even costumers that were, you know, they just jump in and it's like, whoa, you have to like ask and make sure.
No one teaches you this part. This is something that you kind of have to have the wherewithal to pick up as you're watching other people, and as you're coming up in any department. Are these etiquette things, like anyone knocking, but before entering the costume, entering their trailer or anything like that. You did mention earlier, like moleskin. Is there a certain, who is responsible for like bringing a kit, and like what are some contents that you should always have in a kit? Like, is it the set costumers that bring kits, or is
every costumer has their own kit, right? And that goes with like you becoming a costumer, is that, you know, you'll have to have your set bag, and it has to have all your expendables, your supplies. So you're going to have little scissors, right? You're always going to need little scissors, snips to cut things. Maybe a little pre-threaded sewing strands, so in case you need, and it's great because they're already pre-threaded, and if a button pops off, you can sew it on real quick. Top stick, which is double-sided tape. That is the savior of all saviors. So sometimes, oh, her necklace keeps moving, let's just tape it down, you know, like, or we'll figure that out. You're going to want safety pins. Always. Mine has tons of safety pins, because sometimes you're like, we just need to pin it real quick, or we won't see it, but we just need to pin it to, like, basically you're also in the moment putting out fires. So, you know, oh, you could have had this established look that's like so perfect, and then on the day, heel breaks, bra strap breaks, button flies off, spilled a stain on it. You have to be prepared for all that. So it's like everyone has like certain things that are in their kit, and some people have more specialized stuff. Like, okay, you know, like I'm always having to hole punch a new notch in her belt. So I'm just going to have a leather hole puncher standing by, you know, like whatever it is, you're going to want to have all those things. The other aspect is like, so you have basically your go bag of like, here's my stuff that I can easily take and transport with me to help on set if something is needed. Then you have normally a whole trailer for the costume department on location, on set, or at the studio, wherever it is. You have your whole big trailer that's full of supplies and has extra stock, we call it, for background. So we have extra shirts. We have all, you know, like whatever it is for if it's a period stuff, we have like, oh, here are all the, like, not all of it, but we have extra stuff just in case we need it on the day. Or they're like, hey, this actor in the back, can we throw on a sweater for him? It's like, okay, we'll have certain things like that. We have extra underwear, extra bras, extra undershirts, always stocked. So like our trailer is stocked with all of our supplies, and you have your set costumers. Then you have the trailer costumer. They're in charge of the whole trailer. They're in charge of making sure we have all the supplies we need. They're in charge of the changes too. So with the key costumer and everyone, they know the changes. They know the scenes that are coming up. They know they're going to set the line, which is the line is literally the lineup of the clothes that are working that day for each character. So they'll go through with the key costumer to make sure they have all the pieces, because they're like, oh, I'm putting together all the pieces for tomorrow. I don't have her shoes. Where are her shoes? And they're like, oh, they were with the previous change. Oh, they have to go get them. So they have to make sure they are also the brain of the set life, I would say, because on the day they're making sure that all the changes are correct. They're making sure that, hey, if there's a stain that happened, okay, during lunch, give it to me. I'm gonna fix it on the trailer. So most trailers have like a washer dryer too, so like we have that in there for emergency, like, okay, here we go. So the trailer costumer is super important. They're the brain on the set. I would say they're the breakaway supervisor, if you will, on set. They're all laterally equal as far as like their role and their power. Like they're still a costumer, but someone with a more logistical brain might prefer like the trailer costumer than on set, which on set you still need your logistical brain, but you're really focused on taking care of the actors and the clothes there and making sure, you're watching the scene every time. Because like in the scene, you could have done your last looks, but you're like, oh, it's kind of bulging at the bottom. I'm going to fix that on the next take. So you're constantly just making sure it looks good for those takes.
You spoke a little bit in the beginning about since you started out in costumes and commercials, some of the differences between commercial, TV, and film. Other than the amount of staffing you have, are there any other like major differences and the return timelines, but like, are there other like major differences that you see if someone's trying to pivot between those three?
Yeah. So I would say, obviously you have your basic skills. So basically any costumer can go on any film set, any commercial, any TV set, and we'll know what to do. Because we have like our protocols are pretty much the same. Like, you know what you're doing. I would say the difference would be mainly timing. So like commercials are fast. They're really fast. They're like, you have maybe a week prep, maybe, and then you have 1 or 2 days of shooting the commercial and it's done. And then you're immediately wrapping it out. So commercials are fast. Sometimes they only shoot for a day, so there's really no continuity that you have to keep track of over several weeks, months, or, years. So that is like, once it's done, and you're in and you're out. So it's really quick. Film, I would say you have more time usually with the time. You might have more prep time, but you have more time with the turnaround of when the looks are ready. Like maybe you only have 6 changes throughout the whole film, or this film only takes place over a day or two, but you're shooting it over several months. So you have more time with that. TV, I would say, is the most complicated in the sense that the turnaround is super quick. Whether you're on a half-hour, 30-minute show versus an hour-long show, you can have like maybe 5 to 8 day turnaround before you have your next episode. And with TV, it's like, we have to do it because it's going to air in like 2 weeks. So if we don't make it, it's like a whole big deal. So like there's, I would say, a lot more pressure to turn around looks constantly, especially if you have a lot of background. You might have your main characters, but if they're changing, like for Dr. Odyssey, it was like there was a different theme every week. So it was like singles week. Then it was like trad wife week. And then it was like, like all of these, or this was like upscale plastic surgery week. And you're like, what does that even look like? But everything was like they'd always have like a formal gala at the dinner or something, the captain's dinner. So there was a ton of like, we can't actually like necessarily repeat looks. So we're going to have a whole new like formal attire for 200 people for this captain's dinner every week. And so it's like, we have to we went to costume houses, we bought, we shopped, we rented, we did all the above to get the looks that we needed that worked for the theme of the week. And you'd have like, again, as soon as you were like, great, we got all the stuff and now we're dressing all these people, it's like, okay, we need someone else to deal with next week because it's Halloween next week. One time we had like a wedding episode, so everyone on the ship was like wedding, and then the next week was Halloween. So we were like, we have like no time. This is crazy. So you'd have to just get more people to shop, get more people to prep, while we're actually executing, let's say, the wedding episode, someone needs to be prepping the Halloween episode, now. So it's just like the supervisor will coordinate that. And speaking of coordinating, that's where my position is now in costumes would be costume coordinating, which is basically you are working with the supervisor and you are delegating those tasks the supervisor has. So budget, logistics, tracking your budget. So like last show, it was like I was just in charge of like the spending, the cost reports, the receipt packets. You have to work with accounting and fully account for every receipt and which characters you have to code it to an episode or to a character. Assets are a whole nother thing. It depends, but if like a piece of clothing is like $200 or more, it's considered an asset, which means that you have to have a whole log for that. And then you have to make sure at the end of the show that all the assets are tagged and ready to go to the production. Obviously everything goes to production, but the assets are a separate thing. So you have to like log all that stuff in, and it's a whole production. The whole costume department is a lot. But like I said, the difference I would say would be timing, how long you have to fully turn around looks depends on the project. So like whether it's film, TV, or commercial. But there are some movies too that are only like a month. So you're like, okay, they're only shooting so like you have to be quick about it.
Thank you for explaining all that. I've taken so many notes. I'm learning so much. Before we pivot to your production company, just to round out the costumes, is there anything that you wish crew and or cast members knew about your job or knew about like interacting with your job? Is there any like, oh man, I wish just people knew this about the work that I do?
I think how hard it actually is, like physically, you are rolling heavy racks of clothes. You're lifting heavy bags of laundry. Okay, so like just even at the end of the night, we have to put everything into laundry bags and have the dry cleaners pick it up, and like it's a physical like job. It's not glamorous. People are like, oh, you get to shop all day. That sounds fun. I'd love to do that. No, you don't. Have you ever shopped for 8 hours or 12 hours the whole day looking for all these? It's like, it's not fun after like hour four. And then you're doing that every single day. And you have to like keep lugging all these bags back and forth, still trying to make sure, oh, that doesn't work. Go return it. So like there's a ton of moving parts. A lot of people think, oh, it's such a cushy, fun, like girly job, and they say that in a derogatory way, where it's like, if you even knew the amount of how strong all of these costumers are, first of all, physically and mentally, but the amount of hours of work, it is tough to make this whole department go. So it's like, I think a lot of times we're dismissed as like, oh, they're just like want to complain about this, or they don't really need these extra people. It's like, we do. We need all the people, all the money, to get what you want, because we never say no. That's one of the things that our department, because traditionally it's always been female run. So like we've always been like, okay, it will be like pleasing. So we're like, okay, director wants this. This is like impossible. It's gonna be crazy. We never say that. We always make it happen. Even if it's last minute, they're like, oh, tomorrow they just pulled up this scene where there's 300 people and you need all these like Halloween things. Okay, great. We're going to make it happen. So that's like the whole thing. All the costumers, union costumers, we are proud of like our skills. We have like actual skills, but we also get the job done, and we do it, and we work hard. It's as physical, and there's long hours, and there's lots of different personalities, but we do it, and we make people look good. So
yeah.
There you go.
And also let's like a reminder of how important costumes is, because it not only like relates to the story and everything, but the individual characters as well. That tells a story. Also a reminder that you buy these things new and you may have to distress them. You may have to like scuff up the shoes or put dirt on people, which is not real dirt, right? It's like
we
a
have
powder type
special fake
substance.
dirt. Yes, that we
Right,
buy. So
exactly.
it's the
For like,
clean
you know,
dirt.
dystopian type of world or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So you're doing adding blood where like the, you know, the open wound is from the gunshot that they just got, you know, onto the costume itself. So there's all these different things, and you're working in tandem with all these different departments as well as the actors, as well as, you know, all the higher ups. It's a very important job, and it's very
Yeah.
obvious, like right there on camera. Like you can see whenever
You can
a
see when
costume is
you can see when it's done right and when it's done wrong.
right.
But also exactly like I was just talking about, like, this is just kind of contemporary stuff. You're talking about period or special effects. We have specific roles in the union that are ager dyers that are specifically, they can distress clothes, like that is their classification. We have all of our seamstresses, our tailors. That's a whole other classification as well. Like, we're not supposed to, as just a costume, we're not supposed to like sew things and make or build things. Like, if it's a on set and you just need to sew a little button here and there, that's fine. But all the sewing, all the tailoring, we have certain classifications just for them, because that's a whole protected skill as well. But we made a lot of stuff on Dr. Odyssey. It was all of the uniforms that the crew wore. Those were all made. So, like, you know, that was a whole like process, and then making sure week after week, if they're being, you know, worn, things need to be repaired. So, like, shout out to all the tailors and seamstresses out there, because that is its own certain skill and classification by itself, and we work in tandem with them as well. And, you know, like other departments, like you're saying, we work with props a lot, because sunglasses are technically the jurisdiction of the prop department. But sometimes the prop department's style isn't what's vibing with what the designer wants. So, like, we might buy some too. We have that. So there's a whole, like, give or take, watches as well, and backpacks and purses are the purview of the prop department. But the designer will always work in tandem with them to make sure that it's the right look for this character. And so all the departments you have to be able to talk to. And so, like, for me, I'm more, since I'm in the office now more, I will work with accounting, with, you know, the production office, with, you know, those are the people I need. And then, you know, we might have to, like, yeah, work with the prop department, say, hey, we don't, can we see the sunglasses that you want? We have the fitting tomorrow. Can we grab those? You know, so it's all communicating with all the departments.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Incredible. Yeah. Pivoting to Clever Girl Productions. Why did you start your own production company? There's always a reason. Why did you start yours?
Yeah, going back in time before I did costumes, I was saying that, you know, I worked on different jobs. I, you know, AD, do all this. I also worked for a production company in the development department, bringing in material, trying to see if it was right for this production company, and all the scripts were all the same. And my boss at the time was the worst, and he had a very clear view of, like, how women should be portrayed in film and TV, and they were basically just sex objects to him. So that really got me mad, because I'm like, why can't we have a better representation of women? Like, why, you know, and none of the projects he was looking at had, like, female leads that were just not more than, like, just a side piece or whatever. So I was always trying to bring in, like, better material. And at the end of that job, which kind of ended in flames, because there was a treatment I had made, and he basically wanted to, like, really just destroy these women in it and make them just these sex objects. And I was like, absolutely refused. And he basically fired me over it. And I was like, good, because I don't want to work for someone that wants to promote these horrific stereotypes. And so that prompted me into being like, I want to see the movies that I want to see. Why we have this, like, old white guy in charge of deciding what's going to be put out there. So then I decided to start Clever Girl, which was, the whole point was to elevate the representation of women and minorities in front and behind the scenes. So that was my goal of, like, you know what, I can be the creator of this too. I mean, I started off producing and writing. Now I write as well, because I was like, I'm not seeing the projects that I want to see, you know, and that need to be seen and need to be told. So that's where I'm like, I want to work with women, and men, not to, just men, but it's just also like, I want to see more and better representation of women.
Yeah. Yeah. Men who will also see you as an equal.
Yes. Like, why is that so hard? Why is that?
Right.
Apparently it's super hard to like think that women are equal to men. That's it. We're not asking for better than, although there are arguments to support that. But I'm just saying it's more about, can we just not have it to where you have to put your foot on our necks all the time? You know what I mean? And like, can we be something more than the object of your desire or obsession or, belittlement? So it's like, no, we can do better. And so that's why I started that. And last year, CoverGirl executive produced a horror comedy film, feature film, filmed in LA.
Oh my gosh!
And it's called the working title is called Best Friends Forever. We're in post right now. And great director, Liz, was like spearheaded it all. And she was a friend of mine that I've seen her do these low budget movies in the past. And she had sent out a Kickstarter at once. And I was like, hey, actually, let's talk about me EPing this too with you, because I support you. I like you. I want more of what you have to offer. And this is exactly what Clever Girl is all about. So just because I started this company doesn't mean I have to like write everything or, be in it or whatever. But it's just like finding the right group that will make these great projects. So look out for Best Friends Forever. We'll let you know whenever that comes out. And if the title changes, we'll let you know. But we're in post with that right now. And then even just like a couple weekends ago, I was costume supervising for my friend's short film. So she's an up and coming, or not even up and coming, she's an established writer, but she's like, coming out with her directing debut as well. And so that was a short film, and that will be on Netflix next year or whatever. So like, it's all about finding the people you want to work with and championing their ideas, and finding that, most of the time we want the same thing. And any skill I have that I can contribute to helping your project become our project, I'm all about.
We love that. Okay, so wrapping it up, last two questions. Maybe there's a third goal. I mean, you just said like a major goal of like, I find people that I want to collaborate with projects that I align with my mission as my company. Is there any other thing that you want to manifest while you're on the podcast? Is there anything else down the pipeline for you?
And this can be like 2, 5, 10 years down. Any dream that you're like, oh, one day I gotta
do this.
XYZ.
I mean, I want to win an Oscar. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go.
I want to win an Oscar for producing, for writing, for, I want success in these projects. I want people to see these projects. I want to kind of build off this momentum, and I want to produce more. I want to produce your project, I want to produce, all these other, great things, so I'm manifesting abundance, and also just the ability to keep working in this business. Because right now it is very tough in LA for costumers, for other crew members to find work, because a lot of the TV and film jobs have gone out of state or out of the country. And so that's why I'm like, it's more important than ever to become the creator of what you want, and just do it, and find those people to like help you along the way.
That was actually
know. Listen, Clever Girl and meets
old girls.
All the girls. We're just called all the girls.
The girls are coming. The girls are coming. Yeah. So I think it's time for the girls to take over.
Soundbite. We love it. So is there any last advice you want to give someone who wants to break into costumes specifically? Is there any piece of advice you want to shout out to them?
I would just say, be ready for these opportunities. Be ready to like work hard, obviously, and look into your own network. You might be surprised who might know somebody who knows somebody. You don't have to like be the best sewer or the best, designer, or, you might just have a love for costumes but don't know where to start. That's okay. Like, it's all about, you can do it once you get there, so it's like, as long as your work ethic, You know, this is the quote that always comes back to me. It's like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So it's like, I never thought I could be in costumes. If you saw my style before this, you know, I was just like dad shoes before dad shoes were cool. You know, I was just wearing whatever. And I'm like, what does it matter? It fits. I'm just going to wear it. But then it's like, oh, you can have fun with it. It's actually about your personality. But I think it can be intimidating, but don't worry. It's like, it's a great, you know, sisterhood, if you will. I mean, we have men costumers as well, but it's a great network of people, and you just have to like be willing and open. And sometimes maybe it is like, okay, I'll work on this for free. I know it's hard, or just like put yourself out there. Like, I want to learn, and there will be a lot of people that want to help you and guide you. So just, you know, stay in there, hang in there.
Amazing. Well, Deborah, thank you so much for coming on the Get Set podcast and speaking with us today. If people want to follow your journey and follow you, where can we direct people?
Or hire you.
Yeah, or hire you.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
So my Instagram handle is at DEBRA, DEBRAT 21. So it looks like Debrat 21, but that's just my first name and last initial. But yeah, sure, Debrat 21 on Instagram. It's really funny because right now I'm taking a break from Instagram, but you can still reach me there. I'll get there eventually. Yeah, you can. I have a website called clevergirlprods.com. There's I think an email like link in there that you can go. That'll go to my Clever Girl.
Perfect. Go there if you're hiring her now. Yeah.
Yeah, or just want to collaborate, or if you have any other questions about costuming or LA or whatever, because it's all about, we have to help each other. And again, it's slow and tough right now, but there's so many other things that can open up because of that.
Yeah.
So
amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure meeting you, knowing you. We're going to definitely continue this relationship.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming on the pod.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Yes. Now everyone go get set.
The Get Set podcast is created, edited, and produced by Jessica Payne and Monique Schwaneman of Old Girls Entertainment. Original music composed by the incredibly talented Kyle Hall. You can follow him on social media at Kyle Hall Music.
If you vibed with this episode and our mission of bringing to light different career paths in the industry, especially for women, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share us with a friend. Thanks, friends.